do this. I will upload it after today's lesson. I just thought it would sort of spoil the occasion if I uploaded it before the class, but it will be available after the class, so you only have to take note of the bottom of the slides if you want to take notes. This is actually because I thought many of you have you've been taking exams since you were, what, 6 or 7, but very often nobody has told you how to take an exam. It's something that you're never taught. So I thought it would be excellent. I've done this for the past few years, just to teach students sort of what to do in an exam, how to cope with an exam, things like that, to reduce your anxiety. So this was actually made, I think in 2006, when many students had failed the exam, the midterm exam. So I gave them this extra presentation, and because I thought there was occasion to sort of help people to take the exam, and they all passed, they tried again, and they all passed after taking it. So this should help. You have a question? No, you were just stretching your hands. So this is, it's general, because I know that if I begin with the Victorian literature, your mind is already on the Romantics. So if we have enough time, we'll start with Victorian literature. That's why I uploaded it this morning. But anyway, there's so little about Elizabeth Barrett Browning that she actually gives occasion to only about half a lesson. So I'll cover the rest of Victorian literature during our next class. So this is today, general talk about preparing for an exam. I'm just going to see if I'm recording. Okay. General talk about preparing for an exam, how to tackle the nerves, and tips about memorizing. And then when you get to the exam, this is actually, I like to do this because this is the first time that we do an electronic exam. But I think the same things apply to it, just to be prepared. So we go through some of the questions. I went with these students that failed in 2006. So I went through some of the questions that had actually been on the exam. And the minute that we went through them, and I told them, what to look for in them, they thought, oh my God, how stupid could I be not to see this? It's just because, we're all stupid when we're anxious. It's hard to think clearly. So this is, I hope this helps you to think more clearly. And for those who just joined us, I didn't upload this lecture, but it will be available after the class. Because sometimes I think it's a spoiler, and in this case it would be. So the topic list, it's very good for you before an exam. Be sure that you know. I know that teachers are, I think, obligated to prepare you for an exam. I know many, because I live with 3 students, my husband and my 2 university students here, that they're they worry so much because they don't know the formula for the exam before you enter it. You want to know what it looks like. And sometimes teachers don't even show you last year's exams. And you're actually entitled to see them. So we choose, when I submit an exam to the university, I choose whether I make the exams available for the students or if the university does that. And actually you should be able to see earlier exams. I hope I've uploaded them. If I haven't, I'll make sure that I do. But anyway, because they're different, this is actually, you already know what this exam is like because you've been trying it out, because you've already seen them. So time allowed, it's good for you to know how much time you actually have. If you have in our case, you have 90 minutes, which means 250 questions, so you can approximately say there's 2 minutes to each question. And you always know how much time you have left. At the bottom of the slide, it counts down how much time you have left. I will leave some extra time, so make sure those of you that don't take it here, those of you must be sure that you only have 90 minutes. I get the timing on the exam when it's delivered, that it is 90 minutes that you have. I have to leave it. I have to allow for a little more time because there's the occasional student who actually needs more time, and those that are approved for that. If you have any problem like that, I have had students who get to go to special rooms, and it's nothing to be ashamed of to need more time than the average student. But anyway, this was the last time I did this exam. I had 60 minutes for it, so it was. So you have 90 minutes, so it's plenty of time. As you've seen in the practice exam, it has. You managed to finish them within the time limit, and there you have 15 questions in 20 minutes. Yeah.
Where did you put the practice?
They're on the read list. They're on the read list, but all the quizzes.
Yeah, just take all the quizzes.
Yeah. So if you take the quizzes are all with 15 questions in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
That's a little over a minute a question. But now you'll have almost 2 minutes a question, so it should be enough. But materials allowed. You should always know beforehand what you should ask your teacher if she or he doesn't tell you. And for this exam, it is just writing utensils, because the computers will be provided. You can't take it on your own computer.
Are we allowed a dictionary?
Not a dictionary, no. So it's the exam time, date, room. Make sure, because sometimes you don't. Sometimes you think you know where the room is. It's A301 or whatever. You don't even go there to check before, and maybe you're mistaken, because you may think it's Altagarður and it's Alabyging, and you're running there, the last 3 minutes before the exam. So it's good to know, what time it'll be, where it'll be, and the date, because even the date can be confusing.
One question with that, obviously we should be on time, but if we were a few minutes later, we're still allowed to come in, or are we just
you are. It's very hard to be strict on that, but I need to be very strict on that. You all know how it distracts you when people are coming in when you've started your exam. You all know that. So it's good to be exactly on time, because it's just for the other students.
But you won't necessarily.
I won't throw you away. I mean, you may, there is the occasional bus that breaks down or something. So I wouldn't say no, but don't anybody be late, because anyway you'll have less time for the exam if you're late. So here's 6 steps to get you started. When should I start studying? Some people only start studying. I think it's, for instance, my husband is a university student, and he has 2 deadlines, and they're in November 20th and November 25th. And each time I say, don't you need to start writing your essay? No, the deadline is in a month. But I hope he doesn't watch this video. So anytime you need to start early, and decide that it's good to because if you have time and management, if you decide to study from 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it feels so good to go at 5 o'clock and meet friends in a cafe or someplace, because you've done your job, instead of having it there like a dark cloud with a thunderstorm over your head all the time. I should be studying. So, and evaluate your study needs. So what are you doing now? It's good to analyze your time. What have you actually, when you think back on the last week, what have you been doing? How do I need to be realistic. This is what I've been doing every day, and I need to be realistic. I can't make too heavy demands on myself. And of course, efficiency, organization, concentration, and set up a special pre-exam timetable. I'll show you that. So it's good to remember things, to personalize the material. Think maybe if you're thinking of Shelley, or you're thinking of him because he drowned in a boat. You could even think of somebody of some famous personality that drowned in a boat. It could help you if you personalize it, if you link it, connect it to something that you know, your friends or whoever. Or think, the face of Byron reminds me of the face of my friend Guðmundur or something. So you think of Guðmundur, and it's easier for you to personalize it, to remember this poem could as well. We'll go no more, or Robin could as well have been written by Guðmundur, because that's his face. So it's good to personalize it that way. And memory tools, when you have a long list to remember the first letter. It's very often good to do that. All the colors of a rainbow, think of it as yellow, red, green, and blue. And tree diagrams. my mind works in diagrams like that. I have a box at the top, and then I have smaller boxes, and it's good to use in diagrams. I can think the Romantic period in one box, and then Jewish 7 poets, and that will be all of them in a special sequence, because you need to remember the sequence that they're in. Visual associations, as I said, something visual that you can connect somebody with, and that is good to have their faces. That's a visual association. And humor. Don't forget humor. Think about something funny, that somebody, some of these poets did, or something that you can, because humor always helps you. And first letters of list of points. If there's a list of points, first letters. And more negative thoughts. We put ourselves down. We really do. We think that, well, I can never pass this exam. I'm too stupid. I never learned about poetry at Menntaskóla, and all the others must have learned about poetry, and that's negative thoughts. That's putting yourself down. So leave that alone and think positive thoughts. Think, I really want to tackle this exam. This is not only for my exam. This is, for exams in general. And just try every day to think positively. And revise, go again through your notes, go again through your summaries and outlines. And cramming, we all know cramming. We've all been there, the last minute cramming before an exam. And it's, it's one thought in, one thought out, and it doesn't help you. And you should sleep, especially anticipate the format. And you can do that if you know what to expect. It's much better. When you're going into the unexpected, it's always, it scares you. So this is good for a time to be realistic. You have more exams. You have these, just put it up on the table, because that makes you realize how much time you have. This is just an example. If you need to take exams, there's a deadline, put it up like that, put it in the front of your book, and be realistic. Think, I have 5 days to finish this essay, or maybe you find out that you have very little time for an exam or an essay. So be realistic. This helps you very much. Just put up a table like this, and it makes the picture clearer. Otherwise, you think, God, I have about 2 days for this, 3 days for that, 4 days for this. And then when it's done, you can just strike it out. Think the essay for Linguistics 1 is finished, and you could put an X there. It's finished. But this is to prepare for one exam. So maybe it's good for you when you're preparing for one exam to realize I'm going to study this in that day and that in that day. And it's good to study when you have things, like we have separate things. We have 7 poets. So you can study them in 7 days and take each day to each one of them, because that also helps you to think about them. So if you have a reading plan, and then it's done, you've done with Blake, you've done with Burns, and you've done with Keats, and that, have you ever done something like this? You have a sort of, yeah. So there's one organization freak like me in past, at least. So it's much better to think realistically, because we tend to avoid, there's something psychological about us pushing things to the back of our minds we don't want to know. And to improve your memory. So there are some memory techniques that many people, there's something, but there's nothing that replaces a pen and a paper. So, and in class, if you're not listening in class, you won't remember that later. You have to be in the right state of mind, the level, you have to need to be alert, and your age may even affect your memory. I feel, I'm not like you 20-year-olds anymore with memory. So, and being stressed doesn't help you. It makes you concentrate less. And when you're going through a lot of material, it's just, sometimes you realize you're reading a book and you don't even know what you've been reading for the past 4 pages. You just keep reading on, and your eyes go through the letters and nothing stays in. So you need to put it in a sort of a drawer. If you think of your mind like like a chest of drawers. Just you mark it by thinking about it before you toss it into your mind. Think, now I'm placing this into the filing cabinet of my mind. And sometimes it's better, like I just took a wild thing there to remember, to think of something which is very confusing, to put it up like, if you have a number like 8300974, you can remember, associated with something personal or something that's easy to remember, like 8:30 a.m. in the year 1974. Anybody born here in 1974? No. And we have names, we have people, we have names. So to remember, imagine that person, because you have their faces, you can imagine their personalities. Think of them. You're meeting them someplace. They salute you and they say, "Hi, my name is William Blake. I'm the man who talked with Archangel Gabriel." And refer to his name, like when you're talking to somebody, if you're talking to your sister or your mate or somebody, to refer to the poets in conversation. Say, that poet or this poet, because we remember people and we refer to them in conversations. And the more times you repeat the name, the more you're likely to remember. So get a visual link between the name and the face. And a good night's sleep. Of course, it's good. I like exams in the afternoon, like exams like this one at 1:20 instead of 8 o'clock in the morning, because you'll be awake till 3 o'clock or something, and you never get a good night's sleep. So, and I think I've said this earlier. It's easier to recall information when you remember where you learned it. You may remember I was sitting in Hauma when I was reading the poetry. Of Burns. So I know that I was in Hauma when I saw that word, when I saw that question or whatever, and then you can associate it with the place. Or you can go between rooms. I've said that earlier. You can study one poet in one room, and when you run out of rooms, you go to Hauma or someplace here at the university or to a friend's place or read it in different rooms. Makes it easier to remember. You can stop me at any time. I feel like I'm... But it's good to look for gaps in knowledge. Maybe you're very strong on all the poets, but you find out when you've gone through the quizzes, I'm not as good as Wordsworth as I thought I was. I think I'm pretty good on the other guys, but I think I need to sharpen my knowledge on Wordsworth, so you can go back to Wordsworth and study him. And if you have essay type answers, very many of us, we don't write the essays actually at home. I know that you have in many exams, you have essays to write. And you need to be realistic. It takes me this much time to write a 200-word essay. So it's leave that time for the essay, so you know exactly how long it will take you. And you can lengthen the revision. Always allow yourself revision time in exams. Think when you're finished with the exam, don't go right away. Allow yourself revision time. Think, I'm like a writer who's turning in a complete paper into my editor, and I want it to be perfect. So this is, you can devise your timetables, as I said, and recite. It's good to recite. So if you think like you're thinking about Robert, you're thinking about Percival Shelley, say, and you recite, close the book, and remember the poems that he wrote. It's Ozymandias, Mutability, Ode to a Skylark, and Ode to the West Wind. So remember, you recite that, and if you do that, and if you tell your mate that, or tell a friend that, you will remember it. So it's good to close the book and recite, and summarize also. And of course, if you prepare well, there's a minimum of cramming. But then again, sometimes we need to cram. This is good. This should be on every book. Cramming for exams may cause drowsiness, fatigue, and poor eating habits. It may also lead to feelings of guilt and anxiety. It may cause you to do worse on your exams than if you had prepared ahead of time. Well, we all know that, but we also know that smoking kills, and we need the warning on the cigarette pack. So it's and sometimes you fail because you crammed, and And sometimes many of us feel again and again and again we're cramming for an exam. So avoid cramming. But if you need to cram, because in some cases you may have come late into a course or something and you need to cram, this is just pick out the most information that is most important. You know, it's just take it out, because it's impossible. Be realistic. It's impossible to learn everything when you cram, when you have very little time. And like I said, I gave you a plan, so decide how much time you have. Recite, we've talked about that, to repeat the information, and not to be too hard on yourself. As I say, you shouldn't be hard on yourself. If you say, I should have studied, if you sit there, I should have studied earlier, this is hopeless, I'm hopeless. You put yourself down and you start to feel guilty, and if you're guilty, you're not in the mood to study. So don't just think, at least I have these 2 days to prepare for the exam. Don't think about the other days that you lost. Just think about these 2 precious days that you have. So this is, when you cram information, have you realized sometimes when you study just before an exam, it has happened to me. I studied very, very much in very few days. And the day after the exam, just a few days later, it's gone. You know, it's stored in my short-time memory, and it's gone. But if you study, I mean, the reason why you're at university is not to study for exams, but it's to study to remember for the rest of your life. So if you have, if you store it, if you allow yourself time and you store it in your long-time memory, it's much better. So this is, and don't get too anxious. And dawn comes, and the exam day, on the day. People tend to say, aren't you nervous? You have an exam at 1:20 today. They meet you at 9 o'clock in the morning, and they actually say, you know, they said to me when I had my doctoral, when I had to, you know, go before the doctoral committee, and you go in Britain, you have this defense in one room, and there are 2 people with you in the room, and you enter this room. It's like entering, you know, the gates of hell or something, because you know that they're to fry you on a stick. And I was completely relaxed. I thought I've written a good, I've written a good thesis. I'm okay. I'm not nervous, and I was having morning coffee with all the other doctoral students, and we had. And somebody said, you must be so nervous. And they all started, God, if I was you, I'd be so nervous. And they completely ruined it for me. So I say, the day when I went through that door, I was just dying. So, you know, just somebody doesn't realize that they're undermining your confidence. They don't know what they're doing to you. So, and it's very often, you know, I don't know, it's good to have a swim or a jog, or this would mainly apply, you know, for a big exam, like, you know, final exam. So in the exam, it's good to stretch. Nobody cares if you really, really stretch, and you don't know how it increases the bloodstream into your head if you stretch during an exam. It's you know, we're all afraid that everybody's looking at us when we stretch, but I like it. I went to a place in Canada where they had a clock in one of the Alcoa offices. They had a clock, so it was a stretching. So every 1 hour on the dot, every hour, you got up and stretched. And people had actually in their offices, they had these mattresses. So it was completely natural to enter a room and somebody was lying on a mattress and stretching. And this should be, you know, natural, because it's good for us to stretch. So you should be able, you know, in an exam to even stand up and stretch. So you'll all be stretching. Yeah, I see a student stretch. So you should do that. And you know, draw in fresh air. And if there isn't enough fresh air in the room, tell the person that is there, you know, to leave. Sometimes the air is dead. You know, but it's difficult because the door can't be open. But here, I think all the exam rooms, and it may be, you know, even more important in a room, because we take the test in a computer lab, and, you know, sitting in a computer lab for an hour and a half. But it's good for you to go in there, into the computer lab, because they're open, that you will take take your test and just take one of my quizzes. Now, then do like it's the real thing. So it's, as you can prepare yourself for that. So always flip through the paper. Don't leave it. Of course, it's difficult to flip through my exam, but when you go to other exams, you flip through and read the paper. So you know you don't leave the rest. So you know it's very good for your confidence, to boost your confidence, to answer all the questions that you can answer, because otherwise you may have 10 minutes left and you've been fighting with questions that you can't answer, but you've left out the ones that really matter, the ones that you know the answer to. And association, we work, if you studied psychology, you know how we work in a chain of association. So psychologists, they can, or if you've ever been in therapy, they name a word, they say pig, and you come up with the first word that comes up when you think about pigs. And this is a chain. Sometimes we can get through the bottom of our mind. So this is what they do to get through into your unconscious. And all the poetry that you've read, it's in your unconscious. You just need to get it out of there. So you use the association. Yeah. Yes, you're allowed to have paper and pen. And it's very.
Bring it ourselves.
Yes, because it's you bring the pen, I bring the paper. So it's good for you to use that. But maybe when you need to write down rhyme, for instance, when you write down the last word, so you get A, B, and maybe it's good for you to figure something out. And I'll show you what. So if you're still stuck, you can come back to the question. And this is how a chain of us. You see a sprite or bird, and I ask, what is, where do you have that? This may be the key word in a question, sprite or bird. Does anybody know where that comes from? Teach me. Sprite. Yeah. Blithe. Teach me blithe spirit. Yeah. Anyway, it's anyway, you can think spirit. What does it make me think of? So sprite means spirit in that skylark. In the poem. And who wrote to the skylark? Yeah, Shelley. Yeah. It's very confusing. I know it's the most confusing. Did Shelley write Skylark or Keats write Nightingale or the other one? Remember Shelley and Skylark? It's association. You have alliteration as Shelley, Skylark, Keats, Nightingale. It's something like that helps you remember. So use that, Shelley, Skylark. And if there's something like, think of Shelley in the west wind, standing somewhere, it's blowing, it's killing Shelley. So you remember Ode to the West Wind is Shelley. Association like that. So underline keywords, we'll come back to that, in the exam. So allocate time to parts of the paper. I think I've always done that in exams. I say, I tell the student, because how much each part weighs, if it weighs 10%, I give it, and we have 100 minutes, I say you can allocate 10 minutes to this part. Because you should actually do that. The weight of each part, and the most, maybe something weighs, you have an essay which weighs 50%, and you have 90 minutes, so you think, I need 45 minutes for the essay. So that is, if your teacher hasn't done it for you, you should do it. So allow time for each part of the exam. And then you know if you're ahead of yourself or if you're behind yourself, so you'll know. And yeah, when you write essays, don't think of, we call them essay questions in exam. You may have a question like, what inspired Shelley to write Ode to a Skylark? And you say, it was one day when he was at his friend's place or something. Don't reply to the question. Just think of it always, if it's called an essay question, it's an essay question, which means that the teacher wants an essay from you. Start it, and never do the mistake of in an essay question not to state, what you're writing about, because you may be answering the question, And if your essay is taken out of context, it's just standing there. This poem is about blah, blah, blah. And it's not an essay because you say this poem. So remember that when it's an essay, it is an essay. And don't go away from the question, because the teacher will think maybe you get carried away by a story and then you'll find yourself in the middle of the essay and the time is finished. The teacher will think that you're ducking the question. The teacher, of course, because you're not answering the question. We hear politicians, especially now these days on TV, that always manage to duck the question. You know, they again and again and again, and you can listen for an hour to say Kastljós or something, and you answer the question, please. And so you must answer the question. And I think it's time for a break. For once I brought my clock because I don't want to cheat you. So we'll start again at 2 o'clock. You like this? Should we continue after the break with this instead of starting on Victorian times? Okay? Yeah.